Hi everybody, my name is Lee Arnold and I'm the CEO of Kogo Capital, the private money company. Now, if you're watching this video, it's for one of two reasons. You either have an interest in getting what we call an ARV loan or the after repaired value loan, or you already have received one. Now, throughout this video, we're going to train you guys on the process of what we call a baseline inspection. Now, because Kogo Capital is located in the Pacific Northwest, it's obviously very difficult for us to be in every market. When we lend in all 50 states, we literally have to have boots on the ground, people that can go in and look at these properties before we provide financing for them, and then tell us, is the work that your contractor says is going to be done actually being completed? We're here on location on a beautiful sunny day going through this property just days after the loan has now closed, and the investor desperately wants to get the contractors in here to get the work started. As you guys know, the faster we can get them renovated, the faster we can get them on the market, and the faster we can get them sold, the more money you're going to put in your pocket. So we have flown up some friends to join us here today. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But please understand that for all intents and purposes of this video, when you purchase a house that Kogo provides the funding on, we will need a baseline inspection, and we will also do progress inspections as we release funds to you through the line item draws for things like carpet and kitchen cabinets and paint and landscaping. And you will see throughout this video that this house needs a lot of work, and we're going to talk about the line items that the investor anticipates doing to the property and ensure that the property is indeed repaired. Now, for these baseline inspections, know that you do not need to be on site. Kogo's inspectors will actually go through these properties without you being there, but there are some things that you need to make sure are available. Number one, you've got to make sure that the inspector can get access to the property. You need to make sure that the electrical is turned on so that the lights work. You need to make sure that the water is turned on so that they can test the faucets and anything else. Also, any other utilities that are necessary for the inspection itself, you need to make sure that those are on. Now, as we are preparing for the inspector to come on site and do the baseline, come with me. Let me show you something on the front door. We got to have this. Now, as you can see on the front door here, we're not meeting the inspector, so we need to be able to give them access. And the way that we do that is through one of these master lock combination boxes. Now, you're going to pick one of these up at any Lowe's or Home Depot, and you will set the code. So you want to set a code that you will be sure to remember, but you also need to deliver that information to the Asset Management Division at Kogo Capital so that we can relay that to the inspector that's going to be coming on site. So the inspector will arrive at the property. He will insert the code that you have given him or her. They will open the lockbox, take out the key, and then they will go into the property. Now, I can assure you that our inspectors have all been trained, so they will make sure that the house is locked up when they leave. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Steve. Steve, if you would please join us.
Hey, Lee.
Hi, Steve.
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Thanks for joining us up here on location.
Sure, it's absolutely.
Now, Steve, tell us a little bit more about Construction Inspection Specialist. I mean, what was your thought behind it? Why did you form this company and made it what it is today?
We had it probably about 17 years ago. We were working with commercial banks.
Okay.
And as you know, in the 7 years or 8 years ago, it slowed down, and we started working with the private lending industry to help them essentially manage the risk of lending money. Okay. And some method to protect the people that are coming in, the private owners, the borrowers that are coming in and working with the contractors on flips. And we saw the risk, the potential risk that they were all kind of moving into, and we thought that we could provide a program that we could come in and look at the risk, help them manage the risk, make them aware of the risk. And we've done that through essentially a nationwide network of inspectors, all construction background, all in the industry, familiar with construction, familiar with rehabs, and we have essentially done very well for the last 17 years.
So how do you qualify the inspectors that you're sending out? What criteria are you looking for, and how many of them do you have?
Nationwide, there's about 9,000 on our roster.
Okay. You need to know that we look to Steve's company to protect our investment in you, and that's essentially, we're investing in the property certainly because we're an asset-based lender, but when it comes to an ARV loan, not only are we giving you the money to buy these properties, but we're also lending you the money to repair these properties. So we're looking to Steve to come in and tell us, hey, the repairs have been completed, the work's been done so that we then can release checks. Our goal at the end of all this is to make this house something that's beautiful, something that's desirable, and something that's going to put $30,000, $40,000, or even $50,000 profit in your pocket. So this is just one of the stages of that process. Now today, we are here doing what's called a baseline inspection. So
that's correct.
Tell us more about what a baseline inspection is.
The baseline inspection, what we do is, prior to the contractor showing up at the site, we've been provided a copy of the line item budget. And we review the budget before we show up on site for the baseline. And some of the things that we're looking for is the ability for the contractor to give us enough information for us to be able to go in and quantify the work. For instance, remodel master bedroom. If that's a line item for $10,000, it doesn't really tell us a method by which we can quantify it. If it's remodel master bathroom, replace electrical, replace plumbing, finish plumbing, cabinets, make new doorway, things that are quantifiable, it's much easier for us to come in and say, yes, that work is done, this work is done, and they're at this level. Okay. So once we're given that budget, we'll review the budget, and then we'll come into the property and perform what's called a baseline inspection. The baseline inspection essentially is a look at the budget when we're on site, while we're here at the site, and we'll go through line item by line item and really look for things that may have been missed. And no offense to the contractor, it just might have been overlooked, and our concern is things that have impact on the schedule, the time, and or the costs. So if we find, for instance, cracked foundations, or if we find columns that are out of plumb, or if we find the old electrical systems, we'll make comments to that and ask questions as to why the contractor may have left it off, or did he not want to include that in his scope. So really the role is for us to find as many line items as possible on the budget, okay, so that we can quantify it so everybody can get paid. Okay. And then review those line items on site, and then issue a report that we essentially make available to COGO and to the lender when it's done, highlighting the fact that we were on site, we reviewed the budget. These are the things that we found that may or may not want to be included in the work, that could impact cost and could impact time. And as you know, time is money in doing the flip.
Right. Now, the other thing to be aware of, guys, is that we don't want you to do any work prior to this baseline inspection, because what Steve and I and the inspector that he's brought with him today, what we're going to be doing here is literally going through this property and taking photos of all of the items that have either been referenced as needing work, or items that we will want you to complete to make sure that the house is worth indeed the full market value, that you've focused in on the items that are going to make the house desirable so that you can sell it and get full retail value, because ultimately that's your goal, and ultimately that's our goal, because the only way you're going to be able to repay COGO the money that it's lent you is by either reselling the property, which requires it to be highly desirable, right, or refinancing it, which means it needs to be one of the best in the market, the best in the area, so that you can maximize the appraised value and therefore maximize your takeout financing. So there's a lot of things that as we go through here, we'll be pointing out pointers for you guys. I want you to make sure that you take copious notes as we're going through this process, so that if you haven't had your baseline inspection done, you'll know what to expect, or if you haven't yet funded a ARV loan with COGO Capital, you'll at least be familiar enough with the process that you'll know what to anticipate as you find yourself going into one of these rehab projects. So,
all right, the gentleman that we have working on projects here in the Spokane market is Shay Smith, and Shay is, I'll let you explain his background.
Hi, Shay.
Hi, Lee.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about you, Shay.
I've been in the home inspection business for 10 years now, and I go through these houses on the aspect of the purchaser most of the time, so I'm going to be coming in after the flip with the person that's looking to buy it, and we'll be highlighting to them items that didn't get repaired or didn't get fixed at the time of the rehab. So I'm helping out with that, along with the baseline inspection, and adding some pointers to it on the inspection side.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask here, guys, is let's pretend that I'm not here. Let's pretend that the cameras aren't here, because as I mentioned to the viewers at home before, we won't actually be here. You guys come alone, and you don't want us here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us why you don't want us here. I'm curious.
One of the things that happens is, and actually not just in the baseline inspection, but in the progress inspections as well. And the progress inspections are the next thing that occur. We'll do the baseline inspection prior to the contractor showing up, and we'll be able to go through and photograph the entire exterior of the home and the entire interior of the home. And what it'll do is it'll give us an inventory of what was here prior to the contractor's arrival. And every once in a while, we'll have a contractor will submit a bill, and it'll show a new granite countertop. And in fact, the countertop was here prior to the start of the construction. So we have evidence, photographic evidence, of the fact that that the countertop was here and it shouldn't have been built. So that's one reason that we have the baseline inspection and the photographs going on. And at the same time, we're performing the baseline and we're looking for things that were missed, as I said before, from the inspection or from the contractor's list.
Okay, so can I summarize? You
Sure.
basically don't want us or the investor here because they're going to get in your way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
in a roundabout kind of way.
Yeah, it kind of slows it down, especially the contractor, because the contractor's going to, so in the progress inspections, he's going to go, no, look at this, look at that, and I'm here in this.
Right.
Influence the way we look at something.
Ultimately, yeah.
Influence the way
So
you look at
essentially,
something,
it's a third-party objective look at the project and at the progress that's being made.
So, Steve, is there anything we need to be aware of? Anything you want us to know before we head on in and tackle this thing?
One of the concerns that we have that I want to share with everybody is the fact that the more details we can be provided in the contractor's budget, the better. Many times they'll just give us, as I said earlier, they'll just give us one line item: remodel master bathroom or remodel master bedroom. If we could have that line item broken into other parts, so that the contractor identifies exactly what makes up remodeling the master bath, the better it's going to be, the quicker we can get in and out, the better we can fund the project or have COGO fund the project at the level that really is expected to be funded. The subcontractors can get paid. So really it's more detail.
Okay. This is not staged. We are actually at an actual property that COGO has funded and is now providing the rehab money for. So this is the next step in the process to get that first draw so that the contractors can get in here and get started. So, Steve, Shay, do we start on the outside? Do we start on the inside? Where do we go from here?
Usually on the baseline, what we'll do is we'll start with an exterior, and we'll do the entire photograph the entire property, the structure, all four sides, any other outbuildings, for instance, the garage here. Okay. We'll photograph that, and then once we've got the exterior done, then we'll move to the interior.
All right.
Well, the first thing we want to do is identify that we're at the right property.
Okay.
We want to find something that gives us an address, a label, something that's telling us that we're doing the job at the right location. So we're going to take a look around the house and see if we can find those numbers.
It doesn't look like they're here on the front of the house, does it?
I've looked at the street curb, and it's not stamped there either.
Okay, so what would you guys suggest? I mean, if there's no house number, what should our investors at home do to remedy that?
What we've done is on the front of our report that Shay shows up with, essentially we have a Google photo
Show them that at home. Okay.
Of the map that we brought up, which identifies the parcel. We're on the corner of 9th, and essentially Google's identified the correct project on this house. So that's the only thing we have to go on right now. What we would suggest is, as soon as possible, that somebody get a sign for people to know that this is actually the site, so the subcontractors, the suppliers, the vendors know that they're actually coming to the right site.
We're going to start by getting out, taking photos of all the exterior of the building, on all locations, east, west, south, and north, and
the property as well.
And the property, landscaping, trees, those kind of things.
So essentially it'd be a complete inventory of the site and the structures or structures that are on site. So usually on the exteriors, what we'll do is we'll pick a format that we'll go clockwise or counterclockwise.
Okay.
So as we're looking at a house, and we'll do it the same thing on the interior. As we're looking at the photos, we can always revert to the photos and know that we've taken a clockwise direction, so that we know we're always going to hit the east wall or the west wall during the inspections. And then as we're going through, what it lets us do is it lets us look at the condition of the exterior and notice the things that we think that we want to make sure are in the contractor's budget. So with me, what I had brought was essentially the cover sheet for the report and the request from the contractor, essentially the contractor's budget at this stage. Okay. So we'll go through these line items and see if, in fact, these are all mentioned, and the things that we're finding is in the walkthrough, in the photo review, if they're on the budget.
Gotcha.
So just on the quick, we found leaking water, a lot of it, and that'll essentially get mentioned in the report. But probably as soon as possible, we want to notify the owner because it seems to be a lot of water, and it's completely turned off, so it's leaking.
And that amount of water will build up on the foundation
and essentially go down the wall.
Start leaking through.
And with the condition or the age of the house, essentially penetrate the wall.
Okay, so is there anything in the contractor's report that speaks to repairing the plumbing?
No.
Okay.
Exterior plumbing, it's not. So, for instance, on that, we would say repair exterior faucet. Okay. And that would be in our baseline report. Is one of the observations that we made: leaking water, not on list. Put potential money aside for repairing the exterior plumbing.
Okay. What do you have there, Shay?
Well, what I'm thinking with these hoses and this layout, I think they used to have a hot tub sitting here.
It looks like it's the piping for it.
The piping for the hot tub. We got water or a gas. I think there's a water line that they've had in here. It's capped off. It's not leaking, unlike the faucet.
Right. But the potentiality of it potentially leaking later at some point in time, so it might be a removal of that, and a capping could happen.
Okay.
Going into the ground, so we do got a ground line, which we should identify going into the ground.
It's a potential hazard. So those are the kind of things that we look at that we'll show in the report as just suggestions just to either the contractor deal with it or put it in the budget. Because again, the cost of replacing the faucet, if it's not reflected in here, is going to add to the budget. And that's really what we're looking for, is anything that can be added to the budget for schedule or for time. And this essentially may take an hour to get done, but that might be a couple hours, so it might take a half a day, thereby impacting the schedule.
Okay. Now, for you guys at home, this is the kind of stuff you're going to want to make sure that you deal with, because as you can see, it's not that it's a big fix, but any prospective buyer is going to come over here and see cords laying around and leaky faucets and think this is a bad deal. So even though it's not in the contractor's bid, you will want to make sure that the contractor fixes it, even though you may have missed it at this point, especially if you've already closed on the house and it's not a contractor's budget. You want to make sure that you amend the contractor's line item to include some of these repairs. Yeah, and the other thing, guys, don't make the mistake of thinking that just because it's kind of somewhat referenced that the contractor knows specifically what you want. So the detail is incredibly important here, especially when you get to the very last draw where the contractor expects to get all of the remaining money that's due them, and you come out here and you see little things like this and the contractor goes, well, that wasn't in the bid.
Right.
And you're saying, well, no, it was in the landscaping bid.
Yeah.
But because it didn't specifically reference it, they're not going to repair it, and now it's either a fight that you're going to have to win, or it's a cost you're going to have to incur for yourself.
There's a saying that we use in this industry, and it's if it's gray, you'll pay. Meaning that if it's not in black and white, and if it's not in the agreement, if it's not on the list, somebody's going to have to pay for it, and unfortunately, it usually becomes the owners or the investors. So if it's gray, you'll pay. Just make sure you get it in black and white. For instance, repair the faucet, either remove and repair, or remove completely in the landscaping area.
Okay.
So again, it's the details.
And did you guys take pictures of all that? That
All
will be
of
in the
it.
report to
Yeah.
Kogo?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So the question is, what is the idea behind what we're going to do with this area? And as I look at the budget, I'm not seeing anything about demoing the rear deck. Landscaping is grass, water features, rock work, mulch, irrigation, 6-foot fence, and demo old fences. But again, he's not dealing with what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with the plumbing that's there? What are we going to do with the wiring that's there? How exactly is that going to be funded? And who's going to do that work? So those are the kind of things that we include in the baselines.
Okay, so what will most likely happen then for our borrowers, once we get the baseline report from you guys, we will take that information. Now you guys, the investor, you'll see this report as well. So all of their recommendations, you'll know about them, and you can then make changes to the contractor's bid estimate and add those things later. But just know that Kogo Capital is going to require that you do get much more specific with those very items, the removal of the plumbing, the electrical. If this is going to be taken out, who's doing it, who's paying for it. Those are all items that we'll ask that you add to the contractor bid.
Safety items, if we find electrical things that are very obvious, I mean, we're not electricians, but essentially say, this might be, we want to be looked at by a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber, things like that. But really, it's a matter of anything that can show up for cost or for time.
What do you got, Shay?
I got an identification of the address.
So we'll just continue around the house, shooting the structure, and that's why I say when we're doing the baseline, it gives us the opportunity not only to get the photo inventory, but it also gives us the first look at the exterior of the house and the potential challenges on the outside of the house.
The roof's been replaced at some time. The roofing tabs look like they're in good shape.
See, on his budget, he's provided us with, it says re-roof garage. So essentially, the baseline inspection does not include us actually going onto the roofs or under the homes. Because essentially it's just almost a surface review of whether or not we feel there's enough stuff in the budget. Okay. So right now he's identifying that roof on the garage as being, he's going to re-roof that entire thing. This roof is much younger than that one.
A complete roof off, is that what it's listed as?
He's just calling it re-roof.
Most likely he'll just do a second layer on that garage.
On top of that,
yeah.
right.
Well, certainly we want to make sure that the investors are doing the right work and the right repair so that they're selling a good product. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, because our clients are investors that are doing this for a profit, if there's a way to get it done for less, we'd certainly like to look at that as a possibility.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Certainly, though, if there's an infrastructure problem, that has to be fixed.
Right.
But if we can just cover that, if the code in that market allows it,
sure.
We don't have any problem with just covering the roof as opposed to tearing it off and replacing it. Gotcha.
But ultimately, that estimate from a roofing company is what you want to have, just to evidence the price.
Okay.
And the fact that it's going to get done. What's going to get done? Is it a re-roof or is it a tear off and a replace?
Okay.
And for us, even on quantifying the work, it's re-roof. That's all it says.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we even have the question of, is it going to be a tear off and a redo, or just to cover up the skylights? So even on that one, more detail relative to what is in re-roof.
So again, it all boils down to detail, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm beginning to see a trend, and we're only 10 minutes in.
Yeah, we haven't even got inside yet. Well, one of the things that there's a thing called attractive nuisance, and kids in a neighborhood, when you're working around projects like this, and once you start construction, if you have a kid in the neighborhood that comes over and he sees the new construction because things are out here, and you have trip hazards like all this stuff right over here, and you have rusty nails coming through boards. Ultimately, and I'm not an attorney, but if it were my site, I would make sure that it was completely clear of any kind of debris that could injure or hurt someone.
Okay.
Or noted to stay off the property, like if you got it noted.
Because you're showing intent to protect when it says keep out private property, and then they can come on after that. But you at least shown the intent to protect.
Okay.
But right now, you get kids running through, and I just happen to see a board with rusty nails sticking out of it. I'm thinking, my God, I got to stay away from there. So even things you learn at 4 years old still come out when you're 35.
Okay. So maybe a sign that says no trespassing or construction zone. Or
construction zone, no trespassing.
Okay.
Yeah,
so here's what I'm going to recommend, guys. We won't require it on the baseline, but I would like for you, when we're going out and doing the progress report, that if there is still debris in the front yard, that you guys take a photo of a sign that says no trespassing or children beware, something
evidencing
like that.
The intent.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the contractor would do that as soon as he puts it in. At least a good contractor.
Well, I would hope that they would, but I'm saying from Kogo Capital, we would like them to do that.
Yeah.
To look at that point.
Yeah.
And the baseline would probably mention that.
Okay.
Okay, just as a potential liability.
Great.
So usually the baseline inspections, we could be on site anywhere between half an hour, depending upon the size of the site.